MashaAllah. Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
How old are you, Roman?
8.
Roman is 8 years old, mashallah. Yeah, may Allah increase him and make him from the righteous. Who called the adhan? You're going to call the adhan? Yeah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the Master of the Day of Judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the Day of Judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is His servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. As we approach the end of this beautiful month of Ramadan, may Allah accept it from us. A recognition of where we end necessitates understanding opportunity for growth by revisiting what it was that the fundamental objective of the month was supposed to yield to begin with. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. That, O people of Iman, may Allah make us from amongst them. And when there's a verse that starts, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, you have to aspirationally determine for yourself individually, if I want to be amongst the people of Iman, then I got to try to do what the rest of the verse is saying. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam, that fasting was written for you, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, as it was written for those who came before you, la'allakum tattaqun, so that perhaps you might attain taqwa. May Allah make us from the muttaqeen. In Arabic, if you were to find the word li instead of la'allakum, then it would create this causal relationship that says the doing of X would yield Y definitively. So if I sit, I will get tired. X will yield Y. If I eat, I won't be hungry. If I sleep, I will be replenished. Instead of using the word li, Allah is using la'allakum that has a more broad and expansive meaning that's giving an indication of potentiality. That you do this thing, it's not guaranteed, but it likely should happen. It's something that the potential is there, but that's the point of it, that it's supposed to create taqwa. Part of the adab of learning in our tradition is revision. That concepts that we have learned, verses that we have memorized, there's a beauty inherent to the repetitive nature. Why do you recite Surah Fatiha so many times in a day for the entirety of your life unless there was an opportunity to actually gain something from it with evolution to your own lifespan's growth? You're supposed to be able to take from it differently when you're 10 versus you're 20 versus you're 40 versus you're 50, other than if you're just reciting it and not really reflecting on it. Then it's the same thing. The opportunity to revise and revisit enables us to then get to a place that has more depth of consciousness. And you got to really think about what the yield is here and what the objective is of this entire thing of Ramadan, and how is it that I am going to allow for that to be something that stays with me. Taqwa, etymologically rooted in wiqaya, is about protection. But what is it protecting you from if it's an intangible element that seeks to increase itself through the performance of practice in this month? It's not a physical shield, but a metaphysical shield that is existing at the level of consciousness. Tawbah, what we say, is the vehicle that has you get out of the hole when you fall into it. You slipped up, you made a mistake, you did something you weren't supposed to do. The gift of Tawbah, and you can imagine if we didn't have Tawbah, where would we be? The gift of Tawbah is that you can always go back to Allah and seek forgiveness and repent and return. Tawbah is what gets you out of the hole when you fall into it. Taqwa is the thing that exists in you that tells you, hey, the hole is coming, don't fall in. And the whole point of this thing, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, you should probably exit the month with that much more of that kind of cognition. A sense of awareness that is going to be diluted by the things that you have abandoned, and it's going to be enhanced by the things that you have made present within the course of the last 4 weeks of your life. And the idea is to engage in reflection in these last hours. May Allah accept it from all of us. So we don't just engage in the same regurgitated conversation, and a week from now, it feels like Ramadan was a year ago. Because barakah stops when we stop doing the things that yield barakah. It's not really that hard to understand. And the obstacles that prevent the increase of blessing, barakah being the ability to do more with less. If you do it and then you put a pause on it, it's not, well, what was the point of doing it? But the idea is, why would you stop doing something that brings you benefit? Incentivizing now to contrast the absence of consciousness from consciousness. And what is it that I gain when I don't have to actually have responsibility to the world around me, and I can just exert default settings? It's easier for me to not be in a place where I have to be mindful of the divine when I'm yelling at a child. It's easier for me to have no consciousness when I walk by somebody who literally has nothing to eat and has to get entered into a hospital ER just to have heat and have a meal more than not even once in a day, but once in a week. I feel bad when I have to deal with realities around me that have to do with decisions and choices that I make. And I like to be able to pretend that religion is supposed to be a personal experience and that what I do bears no impact on anybody else. What's the point of learning about capacity if then you live in denial of capacity? And the challenge that comes up, rooted in how we see our tradition on a whole. Man sama Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ says that whosoever fasts in Ramadan, and in the latter part of the hadith, he talks about prayer in pursuit of the night of decree. May Allah make us those who witness and benefit from Laylatul Qadr. The two qualifying terms that are utilized within that, he says, imanan wa ihtisaban, the one who is doing it with faith and the one who is doing it seeking Allah's reward. Ihtisaban has the root of hisab in it, accountability. You're in a place where you're inventorying what it is that's actually happening. You're seeing the good that you achieved so that you can understand it as a baseline and compel yourself to do better. And the wrong that came from you, where there's not a person in this room, if two of us were talking to each other, that it wouldn't be two sinners talking to each other, man. Myself included. None of us does not do haram. May Allah protect us from it. But you get to a place where you inventory and you're able to say that even in Ramadan, I was still gossiping. And it's not an either or. I can recognize my capacity. That, you know what? When the shayateen were chained and it was me versus my nafs, it was a little bit easier for me to fast that fast. I didn't have to think so hard about giving in charity. I did smile a little bit more. I didn't make excuses as to why it was hard for me to lift my head from my pillow at the time of sunrise. But the acknowledgement of where there is growth and strength, coupled with where there is non-strength and a need for improvement, is what's going to enable us to then yield what the potential is there. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Or you could walk through the rest of your time in this world like you were another animal created and that you deny what it is that makes you human. But which one do you want to choose to be a week from now? And inshallah, Allah gives us the tawfiq to always choose to be the best humanity can offer by being the best of humans possible. There's a lot of people in creation, let alone other aspects of creation, that we all have accountability towards, and they have rights over us. Whether you hear it or not, whether you believe it or not, literally, the grass, the trees, the animals, everything has a right over us. And a lot of them don't get to be what it is that they're supposed to be, not because they suddenly decided, I don't really want to be the way a bird is supposed to be, but they're not able to live the lives that they were meant to live because we're not living the way humans are supposed to live. It's very easy, the entry point to Islam, and the lessons don't have to be things that we come up here and we start to entertain and say, let me feed my nafs by throwing all kinds of stuff at you that you've never heard before. And you can say, oh, mashallah, look at how great he speaks and the things that he knows. That's not the point of it. The point is that it's not supposed to be hard to access the divine. And you take religion not as a source of entertainment, but as a source of education that informs decisions and choices. And a lesson that most of us have learned throughout the course of this month, I don't need to consume so much. So what's your consumption going to look like a week from now, a month from now, a year from now? Whether you can fast or not, you don't have to feed your physical as much as the world makes you believe you do. And if you went through a month's time not eating or drinking for the course of 10, 15 hours, and some of us didn't get up for suhoor. And not because we're bad people, but you live in a world that is not revolving around Islam. So if you got to get up at 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning to go to a work that has you still working till 9 or till 5 or 6 or whatever time, and then you're praying tarawih, be kind to yourself. It's a blessing. Tasahuru, there's blessing in taking suhoor, but there's a blessing and a rahmah that it wasn't fard upon us to take suhoor. Do you understand? And if you didn't wake up for suhoor, that means from the time you slept until Maghrib the next day, your body did not eat food or drink water. If you could do that for that many hours, that means you can fast in June and July. It means you don't have to actually eat 5-6 times in a day, or 3 like full meals in a day. And the intentionality doesn't have to be one of vanity, that my consumption is only limited to how it is that I make malleable my physical body in this world. But I gotta start thinking about how my consumption impacts my soul, how it impacts my inner self. And the consumption beyond food and drink. You literally consume Quran in doses in Ramadan that you don't in the rest of the year. But why? Why do you stop listening to it? It's undeniable the impact that it has as long as you're thinking about it. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. You might get this thing at taqwa, but it depends on what you're going to chase after to dilute consciousness and retreat back to default settings, walking along like a robot in the world instead of a human that's been given the ability to think deeply and critically. A key variable in the disruption of this is going to be about how we talk to ourselves. When somebody comes and bothers you or upsets you, agitates you in the course of Ramadan, the prophetic counsel is to do what? You literally say, Inni sa'im, I'm fasting. You're not just saying it to the fool who's trying to knock you off your course, but you're saying it to yourself. You're disrupting the default through language. What makes you and I different from creation or other parts of creation are a handful of things. And one of the things primarily is our ability to express. And if you can utilize the gift of speech and expression in the way that these counsels offer to us, and it's not one solitary hadith, وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا, that the servants of the most merciful, may Allah make us from amongst them. الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا, they're the ones who walk on the earth with dignity and grace. وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. And when the ignorant engage them, they just respond by saying peace. The words become a disruption of the automated thoughts that then have us running on autopilot. When your nafs says, I'm too tired to go, your mind and your heart can get to a place where it compels the tongue to exert control over the rest of the body and says, I know it's better for me to go and be with people that uplift my spirit. I just did it for a month where every Maghrib I prayed with somebody. Why am I letting my nafs now feel more empowered with shaitan unleashed, getting to a place where their goal is not me committing a misdeed or a transgression against what the divine finds pleasure in seeing me do, but the goal is for shaitan to get control of our psyche, of our thoughts, and to get us to a place where we believe the thoughts that we think are the thoughts that we are thinking on our own volition, but in reality, the thoughts that we think are the thoughts that shaitan wants us to think. This is why supremacist systems are shaitani in their basis, because they seek to control you psychologically. They do things like disrupt your sense of security and well-being by threatening to strip you of your residency and unalienable rights that you have as a human, so that you are now walking with paralysis, stuck, and they know that the chilling factor controls you inwardly. You might think that you dress the way you dress because it's the way you want to dress. You might eat the way that you eat or pray on your own terms. But when you live in systems that are built to control you inwardly, they're going to define and identify for you how you should be based on their standards, not your own. It's different if you struggle to wake up for Fajr versus you're not playing Fajr because somebody will think that you're weird because you pray Fajr. The struggle is real. May Allah make it easy for us. But how you talk to yourself is going to be important. And if you're in a place where you speak Islam as a liability rather than an asset, then the thoughts are going to be automated and the consciousness is going to diminish and dilute itself. What are words that you can engage in that you know are going to disrupt what is inevitably going to come and seek to break you down? And the nature of this thing of taqwa is that it becomes both the shield against these things, and it's what's yielded through the shielding against these things. So all that's happening when you exert consciousness is that it's increasing consciousness and awareness and wakefulness rooted in a divine imperative. So it's not a moral relativism, but it's rooted in what it is that Allah determines to be good and bad for us. May Allah make it easy for us. Ihtisaban, take hisab of yourself. And hisab is not done in a vacuum. It's not an inventorying that's only done in the sense of, what did I get done today? What did I not get done today? But it's done in the prism of ultimate divine judgment. So a lot of people are going to be in a place where they can categorize an inventory. This is what a day brought upon me. This is what a week yielded for me. This is what a month was engaged by through me. Muhasabah is not just inventorying, I write down a bunch of things on a sheet of paper. Muhasabah is inventorying within the frame of mind that says, I'm going to stand in front of Allah one day. Me as an individual. And every other person is going to stand too. I chose to be a dad. Those kids, they're going to stand and say whether I honored their rights or not. Yours are going to do it too. May Allah grant us ease on that day. You chose to be somebody's spouse. They're going to be able to stand and say, that guy honored my rights or didn't. You might not have chose to be somebody's child, but there's still rights in that direction too. You choose to live where you live. And by virtue of where you live, you have neighbors that are in immediate proximity. Your stomach is going to say that it was filled objectively on the day that your neighbor's stomach was empty. It's not going to be saying this with any value or judgment attached. It's just going to say, you know, on that last night of Ramadan, even after the food didn't come for 12, 15, 16 hours, I still was filled to the brim. But a week later, there were still migrants who had nothing to eat. And somebody could say, well, how much am I supposed to be doing for other people? And I would say, how much do you want to go to Jummah, man? And if you want to roll the dice and say that I'm just going to put everything into one night out of 1 month and 1 year, that's your decision. I'm going to say, because I love you, you didn't learn stuff about yourself, so you live in denial of it. And when you piece it all together, if you don't eat so much, even after Ramadan, you'll have more money to give to people who have nothing to eat at all. That's just how it works. If consumption wasn't the basis of self-worth, self-esteem being how I see myself and in turn how I treat myself through that perception, If I didn't feel weird wearing the same clothes every day, I'd have more money to give people who have no clothes. My body is going to testify that there are things that it wore just once every 3, 4, 5 years. And the third part to this is that there's nothing wrong with consumption in and of itself, so long as it doesn't become an obstacle in the recognition of actual gratitude and appreciation. There's not any one of us in this room who has a thing in our lives because of anything that we did. And you don't need to believe it for it to be true. But all that you have been given is actually been gifted to you. And when you can see it as a gift and allow for perception and vision rooted in taqwa, may Allah make us from the muttaqeen, to be in a place that informs how I see myself, how I see others, how I see the world around me. The harnessing of contentment that can only be rooted in appreciation and gratitude for both what I have as well as what I do not have, even if I don't understand it. That starts to diminish when I think that just because I have it, it means I deserve it. Or I got it by virtue of just how hard I worked for it. No, man. There's a lot of people who right now, they are praying in ways that you can never imagine a person could pray. Living in realities where the world has stripped them from everything. I've seen them. Refugee camps, conflict zones. It's not hearsay or theoretical. I've literally sat in front of them, and not one has said anything other than Alhamdulillah. How? Consumption is directly linked to consciousness. And the higher it becomes unnecessary, the level of consumption, the direct impact is the decrease of consciousness. And the reframe comes from just turning back to what it is that our religion tells us from day one. I am not the provider of my children or my wife or my family. Allah is the provider. You are not the provider of provision to anyone. You could be the means through which it gets to them, but Allah is the one that provides, not you or I. I am not the one who owns or possesses anything in this world. Allah is Al-Malik, not me. I am not the one who will cast judgment on a day that is inevitable. Whether we believe in certain things or not, there's not a human being in the world who can deny the reality that all of us are going to one day be taken from this existence. May Allah make the best of our deeds the last of our deeds. And let not any one of us leave this world other than in a state that's most pleasing to Him. If you can really embrace that as a reality, with veils being lifted from your inner self through consciousness that's yielded and exerted now through choices and decisions from the benefits of Ramadan. Why would you want to live in a default state where people just walk by each other on the street pretending that no one else exists? That everyone is more concerned just about their own selves and not even their actual needs, but their wants, rather than their actual needs in relation also to what it is that those around them are in need of as well. Eid is not the outcome of Ramadan. That's not the point of it. The point of it is taqwa. That's the objective. You've engaged in the exercises, gone through it for almost a month in its entirety. What are you going to take away from it? And what's going to get in the way that you will, with ease or by choice, with a fight and a struggle, say, I'm not going to let go of this thing because I know that I've tasted it and I don't want to be in a place where I just go back to the default settings. And the idea is that it gives continuity, and if Allah blesses us with the tawfiq to see another Ramadan in the coming year, we're starting in a place that's more escalated and elevated. So I'm not just doing it the same way again and again and again, but it creates for me an opportunity. 3 things you want to think about in these last days of Ramadan. May Allah make us from amongst those who benefit from them. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. It does not say li, it says لَعَلَّكُمْ, because the potential is there that that's what you'll get, but the potential is also there that all you got was hunger and thirst. And that's a choice that you're going to make, that I'm going to make. I'm going to get out of it what I put into it, and I'm going to determine how it is that I hold on to things. Some of you are going to only come back to this place Ramadan from now. Why? I sit with people in these nights of Ramadan and they say to me that, it's so nice being here, and the last time I was here was a year ago. And I'll say, why? And they'll say, I don't know. I'm like, well, who knows? You're the one that's doing it. Why? Why are you doing that to yourself? Why? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. If there's no consciousness, then you're not going to know why you're doing it, because you're doing it without presence. Imanan wa ihtisaban. You do it with iman, a belief that this is what I should be doing because the divine knows what's best for me. And I buy into it, not just at the level of what it is that I pick and choose, but I start to then bring in other things that whether I get it or not, man, I'm going to still strive to do it. So if I struggle with my salah, you got to do 1 before you do 2. Have iman in Allah. Don't put your trust in other than Him. You don't have to understand it for it to be true. But it's going to be different if you're doing what He has asked us to do and enhancing because you trust in Him even more than you trust in yourself. That's the basis of love. That there's somebody who's got my back always. A God that's not just watching me, but watching over me. But you choose to worship the God that you believe God to be. And if you think you know better than Allah, and you're not doing it out of struggle, but you just think you know better than Allah, that's not the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. That's the sunnah of shaitan. May Allah protect us from it. Ihtisaban. Bring into your day, especially before Ramadan is done, 5 minutes. Doesn't have to be 5 hours of just reflection, contemplation. Where is shaitan going to get me first? Where am I most vulnerable and insecure? What are the environments where I'm more susceptible to it? The company that I'm around, or the ones that I prevent myself from being around. Allah gave you the ability to think. Choose now what you think about and how you think about it strategically for your benefit, not just in this world, but in the world that comes after. May Allah make us people of Jannah. And it's not just rooted in what is practice or mechanics. These are things that exist in order for our inner selves to then impact how we engage the world outside of us. Taqwa, iman, hisab. Apply these as prisms over the course of the next couple of days and let yourself think not just what you're celebrating on this Eid that's coming, but what are you going to be celebrating in those last moments with no regret? That I look back at a life that I lived in this world, and I was bold enough to live it as a traveler, knowing that my destination was never ever meant to be something of dunya. But I take the lessons that I learned through this month of Ramadan, and regardless of who is with me or who is not with me, I'm just going to do what's right to the best of my ability because it's the right thing to do, because I know that I was built and made for something bigger than what the false realities of this world offer to me. that I aspire to be from amongst the inheritors of Jannah. And why shouldn't it be me and somebody else? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. The potential is there. You're just going to have to work for it, because the alternatives can also be a possibility. And the one that you want to have is going to be demonstrated by how it is that you take what you have learned and continue to act on it once this month is done. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. Some of you right now are thinking about things you've left behind, and you're engaged in a self-deprecating mode of reflection. Don't let your nafs get the best of you. If you did something and you left it behind, you still have the ability to go back to it. You're going to determine through that self-talk how it is that you engage in that. I used to pray my sunnahs, but I don't anymore. I used to eat certain types of food, I don't anymore. I used to dress a certain way, I don't anymore. The don't anymore cannot create an absolute language that doesn't say, I can't go back to it. I used to check in on people. I used to invite people to my home. I used to be the one that volunteered and visited the sick and fed the hungry. I used to exercise my physical body because I knew that it played a role in my mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness. Good, if you used to do it, then you know at least how to get it done. But don't hate on yourself. Allow for yourself to not get stuck in a past that you cannot change, but be in a place where it informs a future that you play a role in determining how you are going to shape, not just in the realities of a world, but in relation to how this world impacts where you will be. And I know it because I know a lot of you, and I've done this long enough to know where your nafs and shaitan, even a month ago, creates habituated thoughts that gets you to here in a mode of self-deprecation. This is where the self-talk has to be positive. It's not about what I left behind. It's about how even in that there's a gain because I tasted it and I knew what it did for me and I want to bring it back into my life. We take people for Umrah every year inevitably. Somebody walks up to me during breakfast one day, they didn't even sleep through Fajr on its entirety, but they miss it in Jummah. And they're in tears sitting with me. And I'll say, hey man, have you ever cried about missing a prayer before? And they'll say, no. And I'll say, how would you know what this thing means to you if it wasn't something that was taken away from you for a little bit? And for the first time, you now have experienced. And experiential knowledge can never be denied. You know it, you tasted it. So you did it, and then you left it behind. Just go back to it. And this time, in this Ramadan, try your best not to leave behind what you've learned. The two other things before we make dua. The Prophet recommends, alayhi salam, fasting the 6 days of Shawwal. And there's different opinions on it, 6 days in the rest of the year, 6 days separately. You want to think about the wisdom after you celebrate the day of Eid, when Ramadan is just moments away from where you experience that with everything now against you, at your spiritual strongest, you fast 6 days in a row. You don't fast on the day of Eid. It's a day you're not supposed to fast. But on the other days, immediately you start to fast so that you are building a strength with all of your spiritual arsenal of a month of Ramadan behind you. It's going to make it a lot different than to fast the white days of the month and Mondays and Thursdays and other days. And not because you have to only do it on those days, but because it's a little bit different this time, try to fast immediately after Eid is completed so that you reinforce the exercise and build a relationship with it that'll enable you to balance out more your role as a consumer versus a contributor. The last thing incumbent upon us is a particular charity called the Zakat al-Fitr. This serves two roles. It's $12 per person in your family. You don't have to give it on behalf of all of your family members, your immediate dependents. If somebody gave it on your behalf already, then it's done. So I could do this for my wife, for my children, but my wife could do it for all of us too, and we don't have to replicate it. It's got to be done once. The Zakat al-Fitr serves two purposes. One, it's a remedy for any deficiencies in our month of Ramadan. May Allah accept it from all of us. And two, it creates a mechanism and means for those who are in need in the community to, one, have needs met and also be able to celebrate the holiday. And so give it sooner than later so it can be distributed. But even if you don't give it before Eid or the day of Eid, you still give it after Eid. $12 per person in your family, your dependents, will serve as an expiation, but also help us to support hundreds of families in this community who are in need and have nothing. And inshallah ta'ala, Allah will make us from amongst those who carry forth on all the lessons we have learned in this blessed month and enable us to meet Him in a state in which we can say, Ya Allah, we tried our best to fulfill the purpose for which you had made us. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present herein and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here, only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Increase us, Ya Allah, in all that is good. Make us from amongst those who take benefit from this month of Ramadan and every Ramadan that we have experienced in our worldly existence throughout our days in this world. Let us not be those who lose behind our consciousness, our wakefulness, in pursuit of gaining complacency from a world that we will inevitably be leaving one day. But help us, Ya Allah, to always find in the front of our minds, in our presence, the reality that there is a world beyond this one, and that every step we are taking in this dunya is informing where it is that we will be stepping when we enter into the akhirah. Make us, Ya Allah, from the people of your Jannah. Help us in these last hours, Ya Allah, to see them as valuable, if not more so, than the first. Let us not be those who are delusioned by the false reality that we are in control of the time that we have been allotted in this world. But every opportunity that you have given us to breathe breaths in this dunya, make them breaths that we release in pursuit of that which is pleasing to you. Let us no longer be those who find comfort in our books being filled with us being condescending, gossiping, backbiting, or hurtful. Make our books instead those that are filled with utterances from words and actions that demonstrate our appreciation and gratitude for all of the blessings you have given to us. Help us to tell those that we love them. Don't make us a people who only hug others on the day of Eid. And let none of us be amongst those who are without any type of embrace on the holiday or days that come thereafter. Make us those who are bold enough to seek forgiveness from those that we have wronged, whether they are older than us or younger than us, whether they have more power than us or less power than us. And allow for our hearts to release the control that others have over us by forgiving them, not for their sake, but for our own. For all those who find themselves in any type of stress or difficulty, we ask, Ya Allah, that by the barakah of this beautiful month, that you descend your divine peace in this world that is sorely in need of it, and make us a means through which that peace, hope, generosity, mercy, compassion, and love is disseminated through all of your creation. Let us not be those who ever hold back on sharing our light, Ya Allah, and instill within us a replenished spirit that has us live each day that we are in this world as best as we can. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
حقا دائما لا إله إلا الله. Strain your lines shoulder to shoulder, inshallah. Fill the gaps. If you line up the back of your heels instead of the front of your toes, the rows will be straighter, inshallah. We have a lot more room in this space today just because of the visit of a fire marshal that's here in the building. So we're trying to honor the code today. So feel free to use this space as best as you can. May Allah accept from us. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Just a couple of quick announcements. Inshallah, tonight we're going to be having a khatam of our Quran after Salatul Taraweeh. So please do join us for that. This is also the last night of the Taraweeh prayers. Tomorrow will be our last iftar for most of us. We're going to be doing Eid prayers. I'll be leading them on Sunday in Washington Square Park. You can RSVP for everything on our website. Sheikh Fayaz Jaffer will be leading prayers on Monday by a local moon sighting. And if there are prayers on Monday, then we'll still have iftar on Sunday night for those who are still observing a fast for a complete 30 days on Sunday. But tonight will be the last prayer, Salatul Taraweeh prayer that we host here in the space. So come for the khatam tonight. Please look for the information on the Eid prayers. We'll be having brunch as well after prayers, both in the building next door as well as at the new space down the street. So it'll be a good opportunity for people to see that as well. But inshallah, if anyone has any questions, let us know. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.